Masechta Avoda Zara Daf Ayin Beis Amud Aleph. We're starting from the fifth line from the top. Ahu Gavra. There was this person that said to his friend that wanted to buy karka, a specific karka, a specific house, let's say. He told him, if I'm going to sell this the land or house in the future, to you I'm going to sell it to. And they made a kinyan on it, but they didn't set up a price. He went ahead, the owner of the karka, and he sold it to somebody else. The original one who he made a kinyan with, he was kinyan it, and the second guy cannot buy it. Abaye answered, but the balakar can never be set up a price with the first one, so the kinyan that they made doesn't help, because there was no gemir stas until we know, like we learned in the Mishnah before, you need to have a set price to have a gemir stas. And Abaye proves, like his father from our Mishnah, from where I know this, the loy pasak loy kanet, that wherever he didn't make a set price, the kinyan is not a kinyan. It's not like we learned in the Mishnah, Ayin Aleph, Amud Aleph. One who sells his wine to a guy, pasak, if he set a price with him, actually madat, before he already measured the wine and the guy made a meshicha and brought it to his rishus, damav mutarim, even if he pays after, he can take the money, and it's not an exchange of ayin nasach, because the moment he knew the price, that's considered as the mizdas, the kinyan. So immediately when he made the meshicha and he knew the price, that's enough for the kinyan, and became yain nasach in the guy's rishus, and therefore the yid could accept the money. But how about Madhav? He measured the wine, and the guy was meishach, and he made it into yain nasach. Actually, pasak before there was a set price for how much the wine will be. He can now not collect later the money, because it's like taking money for yain nasach. And that says here, so we have a raya. What makes a kinyan a kinyan? Only when you have the price set. So now the Gemara says, "My have Allah." So what's talking about again to the shah that we just said is setting a price. Hold back the setting a price. Hold back the kinyan or not? For Gemara, "My have Allah." Yes, what's the pshat? Kiddukamrino, like we just said in the Mishnah. If you set a price, it's a gemir stas, and if not, not. And the Gemara Dilma Chumina de Yain Nasach Shining. So the Gemara explains why is not a complete proof, because maybe the severity of the is of Yain Nasach is different, and over there I would say that the setting the price Bichlal is holds back from a kinyan being a kinyan, but Dafka L'Gabe Yain Nasach, which is a very severe Avoda, it's like a branch of Avoda zara. So machmer to say that the kinyan needs a set price from the beginning, but in other places, a kinyan would help even without a set price. So that's why in the Mishnah it says you need a set price. So you can't bring a right from the Mishnah, because the Mishnah is talking about a severe issa like yayin nasach. You might answer the shayla, Tashma, come in here and I'll prove you that kinyan is not going to be a kinyan unless there's a set price. Avoda had said, there was a story, benegay to a kinyan that was done before they set up the price, and it was brought before Beit Rav Chizda into the basement of Rav Chizda. Rav Chizda brought this story, Beit Rav Huna, in the basement of Rav Huna, in order he should hear the opinion, his opinion. Upashte, and Rav Huna was answered meha from this that we learned, the Tanya from this that we learned in the following brayse. Moshach, if the lekeyach, the bayim made a meshicha chamarav on the ones that ride the animals. I don't know what they call them. The riders upayalov, and the workers of the seller who are loaded with pairs on the back, and lekeyach. And Lekech brought them the rider with the workers with the payers loaded on them. He didn't take it off their backs, and he brought them into the house. Bein Pasak, Achlei Madad, whether the seller set a price for the buyer before he measured the paydays, but they still remain the payers loaded on the worker's back. Ubein Madad, or whether he measured the paydays in the house of Lekech, and he took it off the back of the workers, actually pasak, but before he set up a price, Loikana, it's not a kinyan. Ushnaim Yechen Las Behem. Both could back out. Not, he wasn't kinyan by pulling the workers with the loaded payers on the back of the workers. Not by bringing into his rishus, that's not considered as a kinyan meshicha, because meshicha, pulling a person who's loaded with merchandise on his back, is not considered as a meshicha to be a meshicha as a kinyan in buying the merchandise. He has to take Kol's man, the merchandise is still on the back of the person. And he didn't make a meshicha on the merchandise itself. It's not a kinyan. And also the kinyan chotzer, there's no kinyan chotzer, since the payers are not lying on the ground of the person's chotzer. And you can't say, the person who's standing in the chotzer and has the payers on his back, so the person should be bottled to the chotzer that he's standing on. So we say he's not. But in the second case, where he actually unloaded and put the schei on the ground, and so now it's in the chotzer and the shus of the keach. Nevertheless, the buyer wasn't kained mit his chotzer. Why? Because since they didn't set a price yet, so Kozman, they didn't set a price. The kinyan is not a kinyan. And the hemshch of the Braisa is pirkan, if like keach unloaded, or the seller unloaded the payers from on top of the donkeys or the workers, and he brought the payers to say place. He brought the actual payers into his house, and now now we find the payers are now in the rishus of the buyer. So there's a chilik pasak. If he set up a price even before he measured the payers and did meshicha, neither of them could back out, because it's a kinyan gama, because it's already, since they set up a price and the payers are now in the shus of the meicha, it's unloaded, it's on the shus of the meicha, so therefore it's a kinyan. But what if he did a meshicha and he measured and he did a meshicha, but they didn't set up a price? They could both back out from them. Either one could back out. So you see that the kinyan is not a kinyan until they have a set price. There was this person that said to his friend that wanted to buy from him a specific karka, but now he doesn't want to sell it right now. He told him like this: He says, if I will sell the karka in the future, I will sell it to you for 100 zuz. And they made a kinyan. But he went ahead and he sold it to another person for 120. The first one who made the kinyan for 100, he's kainet. Maskal Rav Yaakov in Hapikait. Rav Yaakov from Hapikait said, he says, this person, it's a separate deal. This person, the zuzim that there was 20 extra, right, to sell his field. So the balakarka, when he had in mind, he says, I'll sell it to you for 100, but if I have for 120, I'm not selling it to you. This karka is only sold to you if somebody else will offer 100. It's going to be sold to you. I made a kinyan to sell it to you. The price of if it's at the price of 100, you get it before anybody. But over here, he sold it. It was a different schum, so it's a different deal. And even if he comes screaming, I want to pay the same 120, he doesn't have to sell it to him. He sells it to the second one because it's a different deal. The Hilchah and the halacha is like Rav Yaakov, that it's a separate deal. He only made up with him. If it gets sold at 100, it'll be sold to him. But if it's sold at 120, it's a different deal. He's going to sell to somebody else. Like I will evaluate, like these three people who will appraise it. Even if it's 2 out of 3, if you have a rave, when it comes to a bezdin, and you go after the rave, and since the rave were evaluated and appraised it for a certain price, that's what we go about. But if he says Kidi Ami Bitlasa, I'm only going if all three say the same things. So then Adi Ami Bitlasa. Then it could only be good until all three say the same thing. Kidi Shaimi Baba. But what's if he says according to appraisal of 4? There's no such a thing, appraisal of 4, bezna of 4, there's a bezna of 3. So once he says Kedishayim Baba, which is not the halacha, so then it's Adam Baba. Then he means to say only if all 4 agree to the same price. How much more so? If he said the finish like I only will agree if all 4 say so. So then you have to follow if all 4 say the same opinion. Another Indian, if the Mecha said to Lakeach, behold, I'm selling you this karki, Kedishayim Utlasa, like it's appraised by 3, Tlasa, and 3 came to Shamua and they appraised it. The Mecha or the Lakeach said, bring different 3 who are more versed in appraisals and let them appraise it. Papa, do you know who the thing is? That it's either the Meichel Lekeich could stop this appraisal and say he wants a better appraisal. How do we know this Meichel Lekeich who wants to bring a different appraisal is any better than the first one? Maybe the first appraisals are more well versed than the second. Says Yeshua, he cannot go ahead and demand, I want a second appraisal. Only we follow the first appraisal. If he took a funnel is wide at the front and it's narrow on the bottom, like you pour gas or oil, you do it through a funnel. So it says he used the funnel to pour the wine into the guy's keli, and then he went ahead and he used that funnel to pour into the barrel of the yid. If at the bottom of the funnel there's a lip and it holds a little bit of remnants of residue of the wine, which is yayin nesach, then usher, we're going to say that if he used that funnel to pour first the wine into the goyish keli, and now he's pouring it into the Yiddish keli, so since there's a residue of the goyish wine in there, so therefore it's going to be usher for the Yiddish wine. If he used that same funnel. Amada yayin mikli el kli, somebody who pours from one kli into another, the wine that's left in the upper keli where he's pouring from, the wine that he's pouring from is mutter. But the wine that fell into the second kli, that the bottom kli also is going to be usher. Zakti Yimar Tanan Hasan, we learned there in the Mishnah in Taris Hanitzoik, the flow of wine of liquid that's poured from one keli into another keli on the bottom, that flow connects it. It's kiluach. Hanitzoik collects the bottom kli to the top kli. Katafri is let's say you have 2 pools of water, and the top pool is overflowing and it's going into the bottom pool. So mashka tefeach, and you have a liquid that is only wet enough to touch, make the thing that it touches wet, but the thing that became wet cannot make something else wet. It doesn't connect the two, the upper, the top, and the bottom. Not to bring tumah from the top to the bottom, but to be matar. Neither way, it's not going to be considered as a connection. Only hashbairan, the mashke that was gathered and it's standing in one place. So benegay to tumah taro, again, we said, let's say there are 2 pools, and there's an upper pool and a bottom pool, and let's say the upper pool is smaller, and the bottom pool has 40 sun, the top pool has less, but the water's floating, flowing down. We're not going to connect and say if he'd stayed himself in the upper pool, it was considered as a real tefillah. It's because it's not connected. It's not considered as connected. But if it's an ashbeiran, like we just said, of water that gathered in the cracks of the stone because of the salt, and it's all gathered in one place, So that we say it is a chibur linyan tumah v'tara. It is considered as a chibur. Aber Rav Huna said nitzuk v'katafris u'mashka tefeyach. Nitzuk, like we said, that it's a pouring flow from one keli into another, and a katafris is a pool of water going flowing down into the bottom, a lower pool. Umashka and tefeyach, and water that's enough to make something tummy, to make something wet, but that thing cannot make something else wet. Then it's considered as a connection to yayin nesach. Meaning, if somebody pours from a kli kosher wine from a kli kosher to a kli that is yayin nesach, so even the yayin in the upper keli, it's connected with the bottom keli because of the flow. The flow is mechaber them. And so therefore it becomes yayin nesach. The same thing is katafris and the mashke. These by yayin nesach it does make it into a chibur. Rav Nachman said Rav Huna, from where do we know this din? If you're going to say from this that we learned that only when they get to Tumah, it's not going to be a chibur, like we gave you the mashal from the mikveh and the upper pool didn't have 40 saw, we're not going to consider it as 40 saw. The mashal, dafka the tool and the tara, who have a chibur. The mashal only for Tumah V'tara, it's not connected. Although eating yayin, that's chavi chibur. But when it comes to yayin, it will be considered as a connection. And a sefer, but if you read the sefer, it says, ha'ashbayra and chibur l'Tumah V'tara. That if it's water that gathered in one place and it's not moving, that water is considered as a connection. L'tumah l'tara, hu da'avi chibur. That l'tumah l'tara, it's going to be considered as a chibur. So it's mashma only l'tumah l'tara. Halein yayin has lo yavi chibur. But if the ashbayram, but by ashbayram, when you're dealing with yayin nesach, it's not going to be considered as a connection. How much connected b'negei to yayin nesach? How much more so we're going to say that the nitzuk and all the other cases is not going to be considered as a chibur. Says Gemara, like lamash minay. But from this, but mish a brayse you cannot prove, because from the ratio of the brayse you prove le'inyan yayin nesach is a chibur, and from the sefer of the brayse you prove that le'inyan yayin nesach it's not a chibur. So the Gemara looks for a different marker for the Heira of Rav Huna. Now we learned in the Mishnah, for Yisrael, that was HaMashbrech, took the funnel, and he poured it through the funnel into the bottle or the plate of the guy, the wine, the chazal Yisrael, and then he used the same funnel to pour it through the funnel into the plate of a Yid. Im yesh bei. If on the bottom of the funnel, akevas yain, there's a residue of wine from the first one, from the yain nesach asur, then it's also enough for the yid to use it when he used the funnel for the yid's keli. Akevas yain, says the Gemara, this drop that was left on the funnel, how did it become asa? The mashbach, the funnel never touched the yain nesach that was in the goy's plate. It never got connected. Says you want to be nitzuk, obviously, because by the pouring you connected the funnel connected with the bottom plate, which was yayin nesach. Shmamina zaraya nitzuk chibur. You have a raya that nitzuk, the flow of water, wine makes it. The flow makes it into a connection, and it connects it, and that's how the funnel, the drops on the funnel, became yayin nesach. So Gemara Tanu Abchia. The Gemara slugs up this proof because Rabbi had learned that our Mishnah is talking about that the Yisrael continued to fill up the tzloichise shala'akum through the funnel. It's talking about that the plate filled up so much that it touched the bottom of the tzluchis. It touched the bottom of the funnel. The plate filled up, so mamish touched the yayin nesach. So you have no raya. Because of the nitzuk, because of the flow, that's what connected it. We'll say because the actual wine was so full that it touched the funnel. What's going to be if the plate wasn't filled up that it touched the funnel? I would say that it doesn't become aser, even though there was nitzuk. Tivshit and nitzuk ein chiba. So let's be patient that a flow is not mechaba. Says Gemara loy pichasatu tzleichisei tivshit lach. He wants to tell you that the etzim zach, that the plate was filled with yayin nesach that touched the funnel. That in itself, he wants to tell you that now the funnel became asa through the touching of the yayin nesach. But b'degeya nitzuk tibai, we don't have an answer. Maybe nitzuk is a connection, but that's not what we're out to bring to teach us. We're out to teach us b'degeya to the funnel that when it touches the plate of the yayin nesach, the funnel now, if you want to use it for a yid, to pour it through the wine, kosher wine, through that funnel into a Yiddish plate, it's going to be all asa. But maybe nitzuk, even if it didn't touch, maybe it is a chiba. So the Gemara tries to answer from here, from the Hemshech of our Mishnah. Tashma, I'll bring a harayah to the words of Rav Huna from the second din of our Mishnah. Somebody who pours wine from one kli to another, the yayin, that's in the upper kli that he poured from mutter. But the in between the flow itself is aser. It's going to be aser. Shmamina nitzuk chibur. So you see, nitzuk is a chibur because you said the flow of the wine itself is aser. Obviously, because it's connected with the bottom kli, which is yayin nesa. Nitzuk chibur. I feel the gavon. The mana namilitza, even from the wine from the one that's pouring the wine. That keli where the wine is coming out of should also become asa because of nitzuk. If nitzuk is chibur, halay kasha says, this is not a kasha. The maktiv katufe. It's talking about that he doesn't keep a flow. He drops and stops. Like when it comes to fluid on a fire, you spray and you stop. If you want the fire to go on, you don't want to burn your hands. So he pours and stops. He stops the flow. Nevertheless, since the Mishnah asks the wine while it's still in the ear, is that nitzuk chibur? Then the nitzuk is a chibur. It says, according to your reasoning, Ema Seifa, it says, explain the Seifa in the Mishnah, where the one that the wine that's being poured into the bottom kli is aser. We could be medak just the opposite. As she'idul is seichel the aser. Only the kli where the wine on the bottom kli is going to be aser. Hada beinu beini, where you can be medayik, but the wine that's in the ear that's flowing, shari I will say is mutter. The same way you were medayik the reverse. Rather, we cannot bring a rai from this Mishnah. Tashma, come in here. Says, I'll bring a rai from the Baraisa. Somebody who pours from a barrel into the bayr, the flow that's going from the lip of the bottom, the lip of the barrel to the bottom is asa. So the Baraisa is talking about a yid that's pouring wine, kosher wine, into the bayr, which is yayin nesach. And he's coming to tell you that the flow, while it's in the ear, is considered as mechuba to the wine of the bayr, and that's why it's aser. Tigma says, Taich, that who's the one that's pouring? It's the guy. The who aser b'keichit, since it's coming from the keich of the guy, that's why it's aser. But by Yisol, that's pouring to the bayr, which has yayin nesach, the kluch will be mutter because nitzuk is not a chibur. If the guy is the one that's pouring the wine from the upper barrel, even the wine in the upper barrel, upper pitcher, upper barrel, should that wine on the upper keli should be aser because it's from the koich of the guy. And they want to koich the kechavim without the guy touching it. It's only with the rabbanon who do aser. It's only aser with the rabbanon. Ahu the nafker levaday. And that wine only that comes out of the pitcher where he's pouring, that's the wine that's awesome. But we're not going to but the wine that's in the upper kli, like Rabbanon will not geyser. Amalahu Rav Chizda Lahan Usabiyosa. Rav Chizda said to those Jews that are selling wine, Ki Kalisa Chamra, when you measure the wine, like for The kelim of the goyim katfi katufe. Make sure you don't let the flow go in a straight flow. Stop. Flow, pour a little and stop right away. Or yinami nafzi naputzi. Or throw the wine. So there should be a separation in the flow. There shouldn't be any straight flow to be mechaber the yain nesach with the wine that's coming from the keli.